I'm Gunnar Branson. I'm the CEO and president of AFIRE, the Association of Foreign Investors in Real Estate. Well, the Sun Belt phenomenon that has certainly kind of dominated people's thinking, especially in the investment world over the last, say, few years, is actually something that's been happening for multiple decades. Ever since we invented air conditioning, we've discovered that we can grow these regions reasonably, that before were considered just too hot or too difficult to live. That combined with smaller markets, smaller cities that had growth potential, that did not have a high burden in terms of infrastructure, taxes, places where people could kind of start over again. Over the last 50 years, it's been a growth story. And the last 10 years, it's really just accelerated. When you think about incredible markets like Atlanta, or you think about Dallas, Houston, Austin, Denver, Phoenix, even Florida, you're seeing great growth that's being driven by a bunch of factors, not just the lower tax regime, not just the lower cost of living, although those are high in people's priority lists when they relocate to some of these places. Oh, it's going to cost less, I can have a bigger house, it's an easier life, I have a shorter commute, all those things kind of contribute. But part of what's happened is that major companies have realized that's where talent wants to be. Places that are affordable, places that we do like to have a mild winter. I think that's a human thing that we all like. The downside right now, however, is that these areas have become cities. These areas do have all the challenges of larger cities, including cost, including taxes that are starting to creep up, including housing costs that are creeping up. So that differential between how much it costs to live in a major northern gateway city and how much it costs to live in Atlanta or Dallas, some of that arbitrage is disappearing as those markets are succeeding. At the same time, certainly over the last couple of years, we have seen an acceleration of the effects of climate change. You're seeing more storm damage, you're seeing fires, drought, certainly sea level rise, storms, storm damage. And because we've built so much in these regions, every time there's a disaster, the insurance implications are murderous. We're having to rebuild. The losses are incredible. So part of what is happening is we're realizing the true cost of these regions. That's not to say that we're not going to continue to want to have vital, exciting cities in these regions, but there are some limitations in terms of how we grow and what we do in those areas. Now, there are certain things that just based on their geography, based on where they are, that some of these places, these regions, are limited. They're limited by heat. The hotter it gets, the harder it is to do certain things in that environment. It changes what we do and how we do it. The more we have issues around too much water or not enough water, the more that some of those traditional markets up in the north become more interesting, more exciting. 20% of the world's fresh water is in the American Great Lakes. That means something. Now, at the moment, we think of that area not as the Sun Belt, but as the Rust Belt. And certainly the industry and technology moved on in such a way, and we moved a lot of manufacturing to other regions. And as such, Rochester, Chicago, Cleveland, Milwaukee, a lot of these markets certainly are not at their fullest at the moment. And they're working through problems that are ranging from governmental problems to infrastructure problems to simply that they have fewer people in these regions than they had before. What may happen over the next 10 to 20 years is a reassessment of these markets, especially as they heal. So I think it makes sense for investors and for anyone that's engaged in the economics of a city is to look at these Rust Belt cities and understand that there is opportunity. There are people there is infrastructure there that perhaps needs some help, but there's also water there. It is above sea level. It does not have the same kind of storm threats that you see elsewhere. Yes, they have threats, they have tornadoes, they have other issues that happen, extreme cold, everything along those lines. However, these are markets that are perhaps well favored in an environment where the general temperature of the world is rising. These are also areas that perhaps we've overlooked unfairly. And as you look at the success of the Sun Belt and those markets becoming more expensive, it means that now there's more parity. and people are able to look at these markets as, well, that might make some sense, both from a lifestyle perspective, but also from an economic standpoint, in terms of creating new jobs, new manufacturing, new industries, new technology. These markets may become more interesting.